China just commissioned its most powerful aircraft carrier ever. It has electromagnetic catapults, it has advanced radar, it cost billions. And it still can't do what a 50-year-old American carrier does every single day. That's not an opinion. That's what two former U.S. Navy carrier officers told CNN on record. One of them said it straight. China's newest carrier operates at only 60% the capability of a Nimitz-class ship that was built in 1975. 60%. Half a century old. And America's ship still wins. Here's the real question, though. It's not about the steel. It's not about the radar. The one thing China desperately wants and cannot buy, cannot copy, and cannot rush is something the U.S. Navy has been building for nearly 100 years. And that's exactly what we're breaking down today. But first, before we get into the details that most channels completely skip, there's one fact buried in a U.S. Naval War College report that completely changes how you see this entire rivalry. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. Stick with us. What do you think? Is America's carrier dominance unbeatable? Drop your answer in the comments below. We read every single one. The current state of the carrier race. Let's start by understanding where things actually stand right now. In 2026, China operates 3 aircraft carriers. The Liaoning, commissioned in 2012, the Shandong, commissioned in 2019, and the Fujian, their crown jewel, launched in 2022 and now completing sea trials. The United States operates 11, all of them nuclear-powered. All of them backed by a full carrier strike group, destroyers, submarines, cruisers, supply ships, and a complete air wing of aircraft. These aren't just ships. They are floating cities of war power, moving anywhere on the planet at any time. Now here's where people get confused. When China unveiled the Fujian, state media celebrated it like a moon landing, and there were real reasons to be impressed. The Fujian has electromagnetic aircraft launch systems, the same catapult technology on America's newest and most advanced carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford. That's a massive leap. China became only the second country on Earth to field that system on a carrier. But then something interesting happened. The Fujian's hidden weakness. A Chinese military blogger was watching a CCTV documentary about the Fujian. He studied the flight deck footage carefully. And what he noticed stopped people cold. The layout of that flight deck, the way the landing strip and the catapults are positioned, creates a serious operational problem. When a jet lands on the Fujian, it rolls directly over the catapult lanes. That means the catapults can't be used for launching while a jet is recovering. The two operations block each other. Former U.S. Navy Captain Carl Schuster broke it down precisely. The angle where the landing area crosses the Fujian's deck is only 6 degrees off center. On U.S. carriers, that angle is 9 degrees. That 3-degree difference sounds small, but it changes everything. It reduces the space between the landing zone and the forward catapults to a point where simultaneous launch and recovery becomes nearly impossible at full tempo. The result? China's most advanced carrier, the one that cost billions and took a decade to build, can only generate about 60% of the sortie rate of a Nimitz-class carrier, a ship America built in 1975. In a real war, sortie rate is life. The side that can put more jets in the air faster wins. And right now, America still has a decisive edge in that department. But the sortie rate problem is just the surface. The real advantage goes much deeper. The experience gap, America's real weapon. Here's what most people miss entirely when they compare carriers. A carrier is not just a ship with a flat deck. A carrier is a living system, It is flight deck choreography performed by thousands of people moving in perfect coordination day after day, in rain, in darkness, in 40-foot swells. And that kind of coordination isn't programmed. It's learned. The hard way. Over decades. Sometimes at the cost of lives. The U.S. Navy has been operating carriers continuously since 1922. That's 104 years of institutional knowledge. 104 years of figuring out what works, what fails, what gets people killed, and how to prevent it. Every rule on a U.S. carrier flight deck exists, because somewhere in that long history, something went wrong and someone paid for it. There's an old Navy saying that retired Lieutenant Commander Keith Stewart, a former U.S. naval aviator, shared with CNN. He said, "All carrier operational rules and regulations are written in blood." That means every safety protocol, every procedure, every checklist was created because of a real accident, a real injury, or a real death. China's carrier program is barely 13 years old, and none of their carriers have ever launched a single combat sortie, not one. They've drilled, they've trained, they've gone to sea, but they have never done it when it counted, when the enemy is shooting back, when the weather is brutal, when the fuel is low and the deck is pitching 18 feet up and down in the dark, and a pilot is coming in on fumes. Stewart put it simply, the Chinese don't know what they don't know. That phrase deserves a moment because it captures something money and shipbuilding cannot solve. You don't know what you're missing until the moment the pressure is real. And China has never had that moment. The U.S. Navy has had hundreds of them in World War II, in Korea, in Vietnam, in the Gulf, in every major conflict of the last century. That experience lives in the people. It lives in the doctrine. It lives in the habits of every sailor and pilot who serves on a U.S. carrier. And it cannot be transferred overnight. The nuclear power advantage. Now let's talk about the power that literally never runs out. All 11 U.S. aircraft carriers are nuclear powered. That means they don't need fuel stops. They don't need to plan their operations around how many miles they can travel before they need to pull into port. A nuclear carrier can steam continuously for over 20 years before needing new fuel rods. It can go anywhere, at any speed, at any time. China's carriers? All conventional. They run on fuel. They need regular refueling. Their range is limited by logistics in a way that America's carriers simply are not. Think about what that means strategically. When a crisis breaks out on the other side of the world, the U.S. can send a carrier strike group and keep it on station indefinitely. China's carriers are always working against a logistical clock. Now, to be fair, China knows this. Their next carrier, the Type 004, is believed to be designed with nuclear propulsion, but it isn't built yet. And even when it is, they will face the same problem all over again. They will need to learn how to operate a nuclear carrier from scratch. The U.S. has been doing it since 1961. The air power gap, jets and blind spots. Let's talk about the airplanes, because a carrier without the right aircraft is just an expensive platform. The U.S. Navy flies the F/A-18 Super Hornet as its primary strike fighter. It also has the F-35C, a fifth-generation stealth fighter, integrated into carrier air wings. And perhaps most critically, it operates the E-2D Hawkeye. That's a fixed-wing airborne early warning aircraft. It flies off the carrier, climbs high, and gives the entire strike group a massive picture of everything happening in the sky and on the sea. Hundreds of miles in every direction. It's like giving the carrier a second set of eyes that sees everything. China does not have a fixed-wing airborne early warning aircraft yet. They operate helicopter-based platforms, which are far more limited in range and radar reach. Without a Hawkeye equivalent, China's carriers are partially blind in contested airspace. Now, the Fujian's electromagnetic catapults do make it possible to launch a heavier, more capable aircraft in the future. That's exactly why that technology matters. But the aircraft itself hasn't arrived yet. The J-35, China's carrier-based stealth fighter, is still in development and integration. Flying it off a carrier in real operational conditions, that's another chapter that hasn't been written yet. Meanwhile, the U.S. has been doing fifth-generation carrier operations for years. The Naval War College report, the fact that changes everything. And now here's the point that changes the entire picture. The one from that U.S. Naval War College report we mentioned at the start. A 2025 analysis published by the Naval War College looked at U.S. carrier survivability. And what it found surprised a lot of people, including critics who have been writing off the carrier as an outdated platform. The conclusion was this: U.S. carriers are far more survivable than most analysts assume. The Nimitz and Ford-class ships are built with compartmentalization, watertight sections that can be sealed off. They have redundant systems, meaning if one thing breaks, a backup takes over. They carry insensitive munitions that are designed not to detonate even when struck. And they have some of the most advanced damage control systems ever put on a ship. The report stated that even mass missile attacks would struggle to sink a responsibly operated U.S. carrier. Not because it's invincible, but because it's been designed, rebuilt, and upgraded over decades specifically to survive the worst scenarios that military engineers could imagine. China's A2AD strategy, their network of anti-ship missiles, the DF-series ballistic missiles, hypersonic weapons, those are real threats. No one is dismissing them. They are designed specifically to push U.S. carriers away from China's coastline. And in that narrow geographic bubble close to China, they are a serious complication. But in the open ocean, in the blue water environments that represent most of the world's strategic geography, the U.S. Carrier Strike Group operates with an advantage that is, as one analysis put it, overwhelming, and will not be seriously challenged for years, possibly decades. Being honest about China's growth. So where does that leave us? Let's be honest about both sides. Because this is not a story about China being weak. China's progress in 14 years has been extraordinary. No country in history has built a carrier force from 0 to 3 ships, including one with cutting-edge electromagnetic technology, in that short a time. That pace has no peacetime equivalent in history. China plans to have 9 carriers by 2035. Their shipbuilding industry, by some estimates, produces 232 times the materials output of America's. That number isn't a typo. 232 times. The U.S. shipbuilding industry is genuinely strained. America's 11 carriers cannot be easily or quickly replaced. By one Nikkei analysis from December 2025, at current production rates, the U.S. could produce only 3 new carriers by 2035, while China could produce 6. That is a real and growing pressure that U.S. naval planners are dealing with right now. But here's what those numbers don't capture. Quantity is not quality. A carrier that operates at 60% effectiveness, a carrier that has never launched a combat sortie, a carrier whose crew doesn't yet know what it doesn't know. Those are not carriers in the same category as what the U.S. Navy fields. The U.S. does not just have more carriers, it has 11 permanent carrier strike groups, each one a complete, integrated fighting formation that rotates through training, deployment, and sustainment on a continuous cycle. China is still figuring out how to keep one carrier strike group coordinated and ready. The one advantage. And that brings us back to where we started. The one advantage China still cannot close. It is not the nuclear engines, not the flight deck design, not the stealth fighters or the early warning aircraft. Those are all real edges, but they are not the edge. The real advantage is 100 years of knowing exactly how to do this. 100 years of lessons written in sweat and blood. A century of doctrine, culture, and hard-earned wisdom passed from one generation of sailors to the next. That cannot be bought. It cannot be copied. And it absolutely cannot be rushed. China is building fast. No question about it. But fast is not the same as ready. And ready is not the same as battle-hardened. The U.S. Navy's carriers don't just project power. They project experience, and that is the one thing China still lacks. Conclusion. If this video gave you value, hit that like button and subscribe. There's a lot more coming, and you don't want to miss it.